Hello class, this is Mr. Martinez again. Apologies for not being in this video, but I've been trying to work these camera angles forever today. And I found out the best way to show you this PowerPoint is to just put this presentation right in front of the camera. So again, apologies, but since we're talking about angles, today's lesson is going to be about angles and the types of angles that you'll find in mathematics. So, today we'll be answering the question of what is an angle. I'll also be providing important vocabulary terms and keywords that I highly suggest you write down, you highlight, because it's very important for this lesson, as well as a couple of our unit lessons in the future. We'll be discussing the 3 types of angles. I'll be going through how to measure an angle using your protractors that you have, and you'll be either working on your own, in pairs, or in groups on answering some questions. So, what is an angle? An angle is the space between 2 intersecting lines or surfaces at or close to the point where they meet. And I'd like everyone to write this down. The space between 2 intersecting lines or surfaces at or close to the point where they meet. So that's the definition of an angle. And if needed, intersecting is crossing. It means crossing or touching. So the space between 2 lines or surfaces at or close to the point where they meet. And to get a better understanding of this, I provided a visual. Not the most exciting visual, but we have 2 intersecting sides or surfaces, in this case 2 lines, that are intersecting at one point. So this is an angle. This is the angle. And you may not notice it every time, but we are surrounded by angles. Everywhere in the classroom, outside of the classroom, there are angles everywhere. For example, there's an angle here. An angle right where the hands are. As you can see, oh, my bad. As you can see, these 2 lines intersect at one point, creating an angle. Angle on the clock. There's 2 angles right here, 2 points intersecting on this car. And on this traditional Spanish house, you'll see a variety of angles. You can all point them out as they go along. But you can see all these windows are an angle. There's so many. There are like hundreds, probably hundreds and hundreds of these. You can see up here, I see an angle all the way up here on this rooftop. That's one big angle. So there's so many angles in this photo alone, in this traditional Spanish home. Now you notice that there are some angles that look different from one another. We'll get to that in a second, but what we will be measuring with our protractors is the degree. The degree is the unit of measure for an angle. So you've all heard of inches, centimeters, meters. units of measure. In terms of measuring angles, our unit of measure is a degree. So a degree is a unit of measure for angles. So you'll see this a lot. You'll see this curved line, and you'll see it on all the questions, all the triangles, most triangles. This is the degree. So the different types of angles. We'll start with the most basic one, which is the right angle. You'll notice that it's the very top and the very center of your protractor. Now, as I said before, for a degree, you'll see this curved line. As you can see for a right angle, you can see that this is these are straight lines. This is an angle in itself. Now, whenever you see a triangle with these straight lines connected, looking like a square, that means that angle is a 90-degree angle. It will always be 90 degrees. Always, always, always. If you haven't written that down yet, I'd highly suggest it. Look for the square because it'll always be a right angle. The next one is an acute angle, which means any angle that's less than 90. As you remember this symbol, it is less than 90. Less. It's pointing towards the 90, which means the value away from the opening is less than 90. If it's less than 90, it is an acute angle, and it is a Latin root for sharp. So if there's some sort of confusion during your questions, just remember, this looks much sharper than this right angle. So just remember, an acute angle is sharp, and any angle less than 90. The last one is an obtuse angle, which is greater than 90. It's the opposite of an acute angle. As you can see, it's a very wide corner. That's because obtuse is the Latin root for dull or blunt. So dull or blunt, like the opposite of a knife. It's dull and blunt, like a baseball bat. It's not sharp at all. So it's an angle over 90. And rectangle and triangles go up to 180 degrees. As you can see in your protractor, you'll see that it is up to 180. So an angle over 90 is obtuse, which is dull or blunt. So we can do it right here. An angle less than 90, what would that look like? It'll look something like, wow, that's really bad. It looks something like this. There we go. So obtuse angle has a very dull or blunt side, which is over 90. An acute angle is less than 90. So we can do this. That's an acute one. And then a right angle is 90. Obtuse over 90. So those are the three angles: right, acute, and obtuse. Make sure you have all that in your notes. And pull out your protractor. So we all worked on this last class during the warm-up and this morning. So, you all know how to use a protractor. And you're going to find this angle. So, you're going to place, everyone's might look different, but you're going to place your base of the protractor where the base of the triangle is. I'm going to place it here. And then you're going to see where this line goes to. Can anyone tell me where this line points to? Yes, points here. This angle, this degree, or unit of measure, is 120 degrees. And remember, it only goes up to 180. Once it goes to 180, it's a straight angle. We'll get into that tomorrow. Now, you'll be answering questions using your protractor, figuring out what degree of measurement a triangle is, and explaining how you explain your reasoning of why you think it's an acute, right, or obtuse. Now, adding in a little more math, we're going to figure out what angle is this. What angle is C? We'll see we have, so like we said, it'll go up to 180 degrees, which means a triangle will only go up to 180. So if you double a right angle, this is 90, and this is 90, which means 90 plus 90, 180. That's why a triangle equals up to 180. So we have our 60 degrees on one side, and remember when we see straight lines that make a square, what is that? Good. So we have 60 plus 90 plus C equals 180. So how do we figure this out? We add 150 plus C equals 180. Subtract 150 from 180. And yes, you must show all your work. 30. So C equals 30. And what is that angle in terms of right acute and obtuse? It is acute. Excellent, excellent. So, you're either going to work individually, in pairs, or in groups, and this is how it's going to go. I know I went by this pretty quick, but if you feel like you understand it, if you feel like this is something you'd like to practice beyond using your protractor, you can start at intermediate. I'll start from here. So, if you want to try and use your protractor with questions such as these, you're going to see where the angle is. And in your instructions, in your notebook, it'll ask, what's the angle and what's your reasoning behind it? If you feel like you're at this level right now and you want to answer those questions, you're going to start at question 1 on your notebook. Now, if you feel like, oh, Mr. Martinez, like I know how to use that protractor, it's so easy, not a problem, you're going to move on to here on what is an angle. That'll be the intermediate practice. You'll be starting at question 12. So you'll skip the first 11 and you go into question 12. If you feel like you're overwhelmed between questions 12 through 19, go back to question 1 and go from there using your protractor. Discuss your reasoning with important vocabulary. The instructions are in your notebook. And if you think, oh, Mr. Martinez, this is easy, this is cake, no problem, then you're going to start with the challenge practice questions. So starting at question 20. And like I said, if this is too challenging, go to question 12. And you guys can bounce back and forth between these as long as you're finishing the questions and you feel confident. These challenge practice questions will be more wordy, giving you real world situations that you need to figure out. So if you want to start here, you can always move down. I just want you to work at your comfortability level with whether it's by yourself, individually, or in a group. And if you work in groups or in pairs, make sure you start at the same practice level. I want everyone to feel comfortable with the basic concepts first so they can move on and move up. I'll be answering any questions right now. So give me a few seconds, or I'll give you all a few seconds to open your notebooks, check out some of the practice problems before you start. And if you have any questions, we'll be going around the class.